With winter coming to an end and spring approaching, the snow begins to melt away. Watch the transformation of the space from a piece of lawn into an inviting landscape front garden with a cozy landscape deck to chill on at the end of a long day, from the design stage to the finished product. This project was part of an endeavour with my HelpX host up in the Canadian Arctic, and you can check out some of my experiences in my past videos. If you'd like to skip right to the actual building process, you can click on the respective timestamps below. For those who haven't heard of HelpX, it's a cultural exchange where you get food and accommodation in exchange for helping hosts with various tasks. While it sounds simple, it's important to bring your best and add value, honoring the space that you are welcomed into. The entire design process was DIY, where upcycling, low budget, and functionality was prioritized. There were some basics that we talked about: having parking space for at least 2 cars, keeping the existing rhubarb patch, and adding more space to plant other plants. But let's dream a little bigger. What if we had a landscape deck right in front of the house as well? Let's begin with the design process, shall we? So this is the SketchUp model showing our version, which was something that's more high-end than what we actually built in the end. It includes a trellis, a seating area, and more greenery like trees and shrubs. Initially, we had planned for a cozy corner with landscaping to shield the deck from the road, considering space circulation. However, this design was adjusted to prioritize practicality and also to accommodate more parking space. After visualizing with the 3D model, we were ready to begin building. First, we had to mark up the front yard with a rope and to figure out where things are in terms of layout, starting with planters. We used the existing planter as a starting point to build towards and marked out with pieces of upcycled wood the planter extension. We had to figure out the correct length of the pieces of wood to be used and to cut them accordingly, and then dig a little trench to fit the pieces in place. At the same time, there was some cleanup work to be done. We shoveled the pile of soil that was piled up at the front and put them into the planters next to and in front of the gate that we had set up earlier. This process took quite a while, and we had to loosen up some parts of the soil that hardened over winter. When we had the soil spread out evenly across the yard and in the planters, it was time for us to move on to the main part of this project, the wooden deck. We started by placing the pieces of square timber accordingly to the L-shaped outline that we wanted the deck to look like. At this point, we wanted to minimize the amount of cuts we had to do, and were keen to optimize the different lengths of wood that we have. For extra stability, we opted to use some unused tires found in the storage and decided to use them to fill the in-betweens under the deck. We spaced out the tires evenly, and when we were happy with that layout of the timber and tires, we moved on to leveling all the elements. As we went on with the process, we also had to adjust and change places of some of the logs spontaneously because we figured out better options. This is something that always comes up for me, especially when we are working with upcycling materials. Being able to get creative and think on your feet to adapt to the materials that you have is also a key skill, as most of the time what is actually on site and in your mind is very different from the real scenario. We ended up having to cut one piece of timber to a perfect length, and this made me glad that we only had to cut a single piece, as we didn't have the tool to cut it off efficiently, and using a manual saw took quite a while. It was time to lay out the reclaimed wooden planks in place, keeping in mind the aesthetic and alternating the colors of the wood. After that, we wanted to make sure that we leveled out the deck edges and marked up the parts that were sticking out that had to be sawed off with the circular saw. And next, after we were happy with the exact location each plank is going to be at, it was time to cut and assemble. This process was pretty much straightforward. We were careful not to mix up the order of the planks as we cut and placed each one back to its position. When we got all the pieces to the intended length, the next step was to fix each piece of plank onto the timber structure. For this part, we used a handheld drill that allowed us to drill 2 holes and hammer 2 nails at each timber piece with ease. And with that, we have completed the landscape deck. However, we still have one more thing to do. This part was exciting as my host had ordered a truckload of light grey gravel that we selected for the driveway. We then proceeded to spread the gravel out, and voila! We are now so close to having our front yard built from design till seeing it come into life. But we still had one last part to take care of. It was time to rearrange the cabbages that were growing in the garden, and we also took time to repot some of the seeds that was planted and nurtured in the nursery during early spring. I felt so much joy planting these seedlings into the garden and removed weeds and was eager to watch the little plants grow into summer. Every day, watering the plants became part of my morning, midday, and evening routine, and I absolutely loved how therapeutic that felt. Slowly, we began to see the plants bear fruit and even used some of them in our cooking, and that was so satisfying. With that, you've seen how the front yard that was covered in snow in winter turned into a beautiful front yard ready for use in spring and summer. I hope this video has inspired you to do something to spice up your garden space if you have one, or to get started with a creative project that you have in mind. Let me know what you think of this process and if you would have done anything differently. Thank you for spending your time with me. Until the next one, bye!